The wind cuts like a razor across the yard of Hamelin prison. Snowflakes drift in the grey morning light, but no one feels them. All eyes are fixed on the gallows. The crowd is small. British soldiers, prison guards, journalists, survivors. No applause. No protest. Just breathe. Held tight in frozen lungs. Elisabeth Volkenrath stands at the base of the wooden platform. Her uniform is crisp. Her boots shine. She looks straight ahead, but not up. The hangman adjusts the rope. His hands are steady. He's done this before. But this time, something crawls beneath the surface. A weight. A pressure. Like standing on a mine that hasn't clicked, yet. One step. Then two. She climbs slowly, boots thudding on the timber. The noose swings gently, as if already waiting. Silence deepens. Behind her, 3 women stand shoulder to shoulder. Their cheeks hollowed by years of starvation. Their arms crossed, sleeves rolled up. Faded blue numbers tattooed into their flesh. They don't blink. One of them leans slightly forward. She wants to see it happen. Volkenrath doesn't plead. Don't cry. Not even a flinch when the black hood comes down. No whisper of regret. No last breath offered to the sky. And then, the lever pulls. The trapdoor cracks open with a dull, wooden snap. Rope goes taut. Her body drops. A single exhale from the crowd. Somewhere nearby, a crow lands on the prison wall. The rope sways gently in the wind. Like justice breathing. Elisabeth Volkenrath, one of the most feared women of the Third Reich, is gone in less than a second. But her crimes? They'll take generations to forget. March 1942. The trains scream into Auschwitz. Doors slam open. Prisoners stumble out, limping, coughing, eyes blinking against floodlights. Mud sucks at their shoes as armed guards bark in German. And through the smoke and ash, she steps off a different train. Elisabeth Volkenrath. Not a prisoner. A guard. Her uniform is crisp. SS Eagle glinting. The leather belt pulled tight like a vice across her waist. Her expression? Blank. Almost bored. But her eyes scan the yard with an intensity that cuts deeper than the cold. She doesn't flinch at the corpses near the wire. Doesn't pause when a woman collapses at her feet, starving, half frozen. Instead, she steps over her. No words. Only footsteps. Within days, she's assigned to the women's camp. Block 10. A place where nightmares are manufactured. Medical experiments. Public beatings. Starvation rotations. Volkenrath doesn't just follow orders. She enforces them. A woman cries too loudly one night. Volkenrath enters the barrack, calm, controlled, then slaps her so hard her nose snaps sideways. Blood splatters on the straw floor. She steps back. Then smiles. That's when the prisoners learn, she isn't like the others. She doesn't need a reason. Her power is in her presence, quiet, surgical, patient. Not the screamer. Not drunk. But precise. Controlled. Deadly. By the end of her first week, her name spreads across the barracks like a curse. Volkenrath. Even the other guards step aside when she passes. The prisoners try to avoid her eyes, but they feel them, always watching. Calculating. Because unlike many of her colleagues, she doesn't just want obedience. She wants fear. And Auschwitz? Auschwitz gives her everything she needs to become a monster. The frost is thick on the window panes of Block 25. Inside, 70 women sit in silence. Shoulders hunched. Knees to chest. No blankets. No heat. Just breath, shallow, and steaming in the dark. Then, the door creaks open. And she walks in. Volkenrath. She doesn't shout. She doesn't have to. Her boots click across the concrete. Slow. Measured. Intentional. Every step is a countdown. She stops in front of a girl. 16. Hair cropped short. Cheekbones jutting like blades from hunger. Her hands tremble as she hides the crust of bread she'd smuggled in her sleeve. Volkenrath sees it. But she says nothing. Instead, she backhands her. Hard. The girl's head whips sideways. Blood streaks the floor. She doesn't scream. The second slap comes faster. Then a third. And a fourth? By the time Volkenrath steps away, the girl's lips are split, her jaw slack, and her eyes unfocused, barely conscious. She falls face first onto the concrete. No one dares to move. No one helps her. This is the new reality. One prisoner, a former schoolteacher, writes in a hidden scrap of paper. She hits with no emotion. No heat. Like turning off a light. Days pass. Then weeks. Volkenrath begins to patrol the selection lines. Women lined up like cattle in snow, shivering, praying she doesn't stop in front of them. But when she does, there's no mercy. If you falter, she hits. If you speak, she punishes you. If you're lucky, you get the back of her hand. If not, it's the rubber truncheon. Word spreads across the blocks like wildfire. Don't look at her. Don't speak. Don't even breathe too loud. Because Volkenrath isn't just another guard. She's a predator in a uniform. January 1945. The Reich is crumbling. Soviet tanks thunder through Poland. Cities fall. Camps are abandoned. But Bergen-Belsen is not. The SS needs enforcers. So they send Elisabeth Volkenrath. She arrives February 5th, snow falls in thick curtains. The gates groan open. She steps in with a suitcase and silence. The air here is different, wet with disease. Typhus. Dysentery. Starvation. Bergen-Belsen is no longer a labor camp. It's a pit. There are no gas chambers. But the bodies still pile up, by the hundreds. Corpses lie in the mud. Eyeless. Frozen. Swollen. Rats chew at limbs in broad daylight. The stench seeps into every crack of the wooden barracks. And Volkenrath? She thrives in it. With Joseph Kramer, the beast of Belsen, at her side, and Johanna Bormann unleashing dogs on command, this camp becomes a perfect playground of power. Volkenrath patrols the perimeter with a passive face and quick fists. She still carries her rubber truncheon. But here, she doesn't even need it. They're too weak to run. Sometimes, she walks past rows of dying prisoners and kicks the ones who've collapsed. Just to see if they'll move. One survivor remembers seeing her drag a starving woman by the hair because she hadn't stood fast enough during roll call. She pulled her into the mud, held her head under water, and walked away before she stopped thrashing. Not a punishment. Not an example. Just cruelty, refined. And then comes April 15th. The British arrive. Tanks roll in. Cameras click. The gates fall. But Volkenrath? She keeps going. One day after liberation, a British medic rounds a corner, and freezes. Volkenrath is still beating a prisoner. With her bare hands. Over and over. Blood on her knuckles. No hesitation. No fear. Because even in defeat, the brutality doesn't stop. September 17, 1945. Lüneburg, northern Germany. Rain lashes against the military courthouse. Sandbags line the entrance. British soldiers stand guard, rifles at the ready. Inside, the Belsen trial begins. 45 defendants. Former SS guards. Camp officials. Doctors. Executioners. Among them, Elisabeth Volkenrath. She walks into the courtroom in her prison dress, no longer crisp, no longer commanding. Her blonde hair is shorter now. Her posture, still upright. Still defiant. Across from her, rows of wooden benches creak under the weight of journalists, officers, and survivors. When her name is read aloud, there's a shift. A murmur. A collective tightening of breath. This is the woman they remember. Testimonies begin. One woman stands to speak. Her voice cracks, but her hands are steady. She beat my sister because her coat was missing a button. 3 days later, my sister died in the infirmary. I watched it happen. Volkenrath stood outside, laughing. Another witness, a Polish nurse, recalls how Volkenrath dragged a dying child from the barracks, by the ankle. The girl was already dead, she says. But she didn't care. She wanted to send a message. The courtroom remained still. No outbursts. No arguments. Just statement after statement. Brick after brick of horror. When it's Volkenrath's turn to speak, she rises without hesitation. I only slapped a few, she says coldly. Never with a truncheon. And only when they disobeyed. Gasps ripple through the gallery. The tribunal doesn't respond immediately. Because they don't need to. The evidence is overwhelming. Film footage from Bergen-Belsen is played. Rows of corpses. Piles of bone. Prisoners are too weak to lift their heads. And among the still frames, Volkenrath. Walking. Watching. Unmoved. No remorse. No regret. Just silence. Until the gavel slams down. Guilty. Sentence, death by hanging. December 13, 1945. Hamelin Prison. Germany. It's just after sunrise. The fog hangs low like a funeral shroud. Inside the stone walls, guards move in silence. No chatter. No cigarettes. Just the heavy weight of what's about to happen. In the execution wing, British hangman Albert Pierrepoint adjusts the rope. He's calm. Methodical. He's carried out over 200 executions, but this one feels colder. Because this is no ordinary criminal. This is Elisabeth Volkenrath. She's led from her cell in handcuffs. 2 soldiers at her sides. Her face is pale, but her chin is high. She doesn't resist. She doesn't ask for a priest. No final words are offered. Just footsteps. Steady. Echoing through the corridor. Thud, thud, thud. They reach the gallows. A simple wooden frame. A trapdoor. A rope swinging slightly in the breeze from an open window. Pierrepoint nods. She steps up. Behind a partition, 3 female survivors stand watching. They asked to be present. They wanted to see it. Not out of vengeance, but confirmation. That it was really ending. That she was really ending. Volkenrath doesn't tremble. But her lips twitch, just once, before the hood comes down. Pierrepoint moves swiftly. Adjusts the knot. Steps back. And then, he pulls the lever. The trapdoor drops with a sharp crack. The rope snaps tight. Her body falls, then swings gently. One boot slips from her foot and tumbles to the floor. No cheers. No gasps. Just silence. A long, bitter silence. After 10 minutes, the doctor checks the pulse. Confirms it. Elisabeth Volkenrath is dead. One of the women behind the curtain lets out a breath she didn't know she was holding. The nightmare didn't end with the war. It ended here. On a piece of wood. With a rope. The body is cut down. Wrapped in a plain canvas sheet. No ceremony. No cross. No name etched in stone. Elisabeth Volkenrath is buried in a prison yard alongside other condemned war criminals, marked only by numbers. But her memory is harder to bury. Back at Bergen-Belsen, the British Red Cross continues pulling bodies from shallow pits. The smell of death lingers in the soil. Survivors, too weak to speak, are carried out on stretchers, skeletal, blinking at the light for the first time in weeks. A film crew documents the scene. They show the world what happened behind those gates. And in those frames, Volkenrath's face appears. Walking between rows of prisoners. Arms behind her back. Watching. Always watching. Her image freezes in time. A face etched into history, not for what she said, but for what she did. For what she didn't stop. For what she enjoyed. In the years that follow, survivors tell their stories. In schools. In books. In whispers to their grandchildren. And her name returns again and again. Not as a woman. But as a warning. Because Volkenrath wasn't born a monster. She chose to become one. Not with rage or madness, but with silence, obedience, and quiet cruelty. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that kills in routine. She was 26 when she died. Younger than many of her victims. But the echo of her fists, her stare, her smirk, lasted longer than her life ever did. And though the rope stopped her breath, it did not silence her legacy. Justice came swinging. Cold. Brief. Final. But for those who survived her, the sentence had started long before the gallows dropped. And it never truly ended. If this story shook you, don't let history repeat itself. Share this video, so the world never forgets what evil looks like when it wears a uniform.